President Biden scares me a little bit. Is on the phone with President Xi of China. I'm sure, have some report about what they talked about, and we'll see if that looks like that adds up to what's actually going on publicly by the Chinese, because their threats against us are increasing verbally as we speak. I want to go right to Rick Grenell, our Senior Advisor for Foreign Policy and National Security, because, Rick, these phone calls are significant. This is one that's been talked about for the last 10 days or so. President Xi is looking for this third term in China to remain as their leader of the CCP. But also, if you've been this advisor before, so if you're about to do one of these phone calls, it could be an hour or longer with all the translation that goes back and forth, and you've got a number of issues with what is becoming increasingly a full-on adversary, but also this economic partner. So this kind of bizarre relationship. What would be your advice, like top issues we need to address right now, president to president?
Well, first of all, I've been on many of these diplomatic phone calls and preparation works for calls with Chinese officials. And the way that the Chinese like to do diplomacy is they like all of the issues before the call. They want all of the negotiations done before the call, so that the call is just more reminding each other of the talking points. Donald Trump never did that. He would bring up subjects that they weren't prepared for and really would get them off their game. And I think that unpredictability was really a key to the success of diplomacy. I don't know what Joe Biden and his team are doing, if they've gone back to the traditional way of telling the subjects and being very clear about what we were going to ask for beforehand. I would suspect that Hunter Biden's laptop did not come up, but I can guarantee you that would have been something that Donald Trump would have brought up. I think the Chinese need to answer the question, what's on that laptop? Are you involved in the Biden family financially? And we need to always bring up COVID-19 and the origins of COVID-19. The communist Chinese government has covered up what they knew and what the world did not know. And that's unacceptable. And we have economies that have tanked. We have small businesses that have lost their livelihoods. Individuals have gone bankrupt because of COVID-19. People have died because of COVID-19. The Chinese communist ways of covering up that pandemic need to be always at the forefront of these conversations. I doubt they were today.
Yeah, and it seems like even Washington, even outside of the Biden administration, Rick, cannot get their hands on it. Like even with the CHIPS legislation, which was somewhat controversial inside Republican. Well, it was kind of controversial, and then it passed the Senate, and right away, Joe Manchin comes out with an endorsement of basically Build Back Better light, if you want to call it that, to be nice to Joe Manchin. It's basically, it's the Green New Deal. It's tax hikes during a time of economic uncertainty. So the politics around China, it still seems like they just cannot act. You can't get through it, so you can't rely on just the government or Congress getting it done, because it seems like everything gets tied back to then another political gotcha.
Yeah, let me just talk about the chips thing for a second. The game in Washington is that wealthy chip makers will hire lobbyists to go into Congress and say, we cannot build chip manufacturing facilities in the United States unless we get some government subsidies, unless you pay us to come back. And I think that's crazy. I don't think we should be spending $52 billion to help wealthy companies bring their manufacturing plants back to the United States. Instead, what we should do is we should put tariffs on any chips that are made outside of the United States. We need to incentivize the system, the market, not individual companies. And I think that's the difference, and that's something that Donald Trump would have seen very clearly. We're not going to do taxpayer giveaways to wealthy companies, but we do need to bring the supply chain home. These companies, these American companies, need to bring back those chip manufacturing facilities to the United States, because it is the best thing in their interest, and we can incentivize them through tariffs if they don't.
think that's a really interesting way to look at it, Rick, because a lot of people see our reliance on China and go, well, there's really nothing we can do. I mean, at this point, if we're just being honest with ourselves, half of the things that are or more that are being made just to get this show on the air were manufactured and created likely in China. It's just sadly the fact. But what you said and what you brought up is coming up with a different way to do it that's not an all or nothing. It gives you, right, the pathway to getting things back to America. Because if anyone's ever been in manufacturing, tried to get things done, a lot of it is very difficult, very hard for companies to even attempt to get it made in America. You go to some of these people that factories and we like to do this and they just go, well, no. So let's find a way to do that. I really appreciate that way of looking at it.
Well, one thing I will say is that politicians don't know how to do this. Joe Biden has been a politician for 40 plus years. He doesn't know how to do this. Donald Trump, as the outside businessman, it was second nature to him to think about the markets. I'll give you another example. When we got rid of NAFTA and we created the Mexico-Canada agreement with the United States, there was a move in the Trump administration. If we had more time, I think it would have bared out, to incentivize the triangle countries, Guatemala and these countries where we see a lot of immigration starting, the illegal immigration into the United States starting. There was a way that Donald Trump was saying, let's bring home the supply chain from China. It's better to put it in North America. It's better for America if these manufacturing plants are down in Guatemala and in the Triangle region, because if we can create jobs down there, they're not going to be flooding into our country. And so rather than have a supply chain in China, let's have a supply chain somewhere in North America or Central America that's going to greater benefit the United States. This is the type of outside business thinking that we need in Washington.
Ultimately, Rick, the whole news too surrounding Nancy Pelosi, the trip, and you kind of have Republicans saying go at this point, but now she is getting tremendous pressure from her colleagues, from the president, from the White House to not go to Taiwan. Ultimately, if she does not go on that trip, is that a victory for China?
Yeah, it's another victory for China, I would say. They've already come to Alaska and lectured us on our soil about our human rights, and our Secretary of State couldn't get out of his chair to push back. And so we see weakness all over. We've talked about this so many times, Afghanistan, Nord Stream 2, the Houthis being taken off the terrorist list. It's just example after example of the Biden administration being weak. And here we go again, the Speaker of the House, the woman who leads the Democratic Party in the House is somehow intimidated to go to Taiwan. I hope she doesn't back down. I hope she goes. She should have decided to immediately go without making a big deal out of it. She was going to be in the region. Just go to Taiwan and do our foreign policy. Don't let others veto our foreign policy.
All right, Rick Grenell, Senior Advisor for Foreign Policy and National Security. Rick, as always, we appreciate it.